On the Marawi crisis, a suspected terrorist attempts to flee while being treated at a hospital in the city. The military also says many of the Maute fighters still hold strategic positions, making operations to regain full control over the city difficult. Our George Cahiles tells us more.
A suspected Maute fighter who is being treated at the Amai Pakpak Medical Center tried to escape the hospital on Friday. Now, sources knowledgeable about the incident who refused to be named say the suspect left the hospital Friday morning and was found inside the house behind the hospital in the afternoon. Now, the suspect, who has a gunshot wound on his throat, was brought to the hospital Wednesday morning. Joint Task Force Marawi spokesperson Joar Herrera says he has yet to get details on that particular incident. Now, on the ongoing operations, government forces are gaining footholds on the enemy positions. But the military says Maute fighters are still occupying strategic buildings in downtown Marawi. Their attempt to slow down the military to advance towards the center of gravity. Now, Herrera says fighters are still using mosques as their lairs. Also, soldiers are still eyeing to clear around 800 buildings inside the war zone.
Well, matataas po yung mga building na to. Ito na kasi yung center of commerce ng Marawi City. Andito yung Banggulo poblasyon. And
tsaka yung Padian.
Andyan yung Padyan. Okay, nandyan yung mga business center. Nandyan yung mga buildings. Okay? So kung hindi po tayo gagamit ng airstrike, we will incur more casualties on our troops.
Well, so far, the military reports 366 Maute members were killed and around 80 are still fighting within the war zone. And on the government side, 87 were killed and more than 1,700 individuals were already rescued from the conflict zone. From Marawi City, George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
The Crisis Management Committee of Lanao del Sur is calling on the national government to protect madrasas or Islamic schools and tabliks or Islamic teachers, as they can easily be subjected to discrimination and anti-Islam attacks.
We need to protect the madrasas outside of Lanao del Sur. As I've said, because of some of the issues that that came out recently, the ID system, imposing an ID system selectively on a particular group of people with specific religious background, might lead to some people thinking that any facilities that might resemble Islam in general would become an object of of discrimination, or even the worst, attack by any people that have that fear in them.
Committee spokesperson Zia Alonto Adjong says Islamic teachers deserve to be paid regular salaries and be given benefits just like teachers in the public school system. That way they can focus on their work, propagating the sound interpretation of Islam, and nip extremist ideology in the bud. When the newsroom returns, no let-up in security. Police in Metro Manila gear up for President Duterte's second State of the Nation address. And Kim Jong-un marks the death anniversary of his grandfather, North Korean founder Kim Il-sung. Back after a quick break, keep it here on CNN Philippines. On Facebook, thank you for joining us tonight. Earlier we heard the stories of the residents of Leyte affected by the magnitude 6.5 earthquake last Thursday. Heartbreaking stories. Many were emotional as they now try to rebuild, and they're appealing for help after their homes were damaged, and also many are still in tents or forcibly evacuated from their homes because of the damage in their houses. Now, we're also learning about the challenges of the relief operations there in Leyte, especially since the weather hasn't been cooperating lately. We'd like to say hello to our viewers now, and I'd like to read some of your messages. Tony Dacles says, my sympathy to the residents of Leyte. Dominic Tan Jr., he's watching us from Taiwan. Gemini G. Ruiz watching from Brunei. Chris Elican watching us from Tarlac. And Nilekoj Adi Noel watching from Kuwait. Yoli Abner Kanda watching us from Marysville, Washington. Kanchan Kana, hello to you from Kawasaki, Japan. And Niude Yaaya watching from Toril, Davao City. Thank you for joining us tonight. Stay tuned for more stories. We'll be back shortly. This is the newsroom on CNN Philippines. Welcome back. President Rodrigo Duterte says he will not lift martial law in Mindanao before his State of the Nation address on July 24. That's over 2 months after his declaration. This if the military and police say Mindanao is not yet safe from terrorists.
I do not have an independent study of how things are on the ground. It's not my job. And I cannot do it physically even. So I have just to rely on the word of the armed forces and the police because they are the one keeping this republic healthy and alive. Pag sinabi nila wala ng delikado and everything is okay, then that is the time that they will lift martial law.
This was during the interview in Iligan City yesterday, where the president visited soldiers of the 2nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade. Mr. Duterte was supposed to visit conflict-torn Marawi City, but the trip did not push through because of bad weather. The Metro Manila Police braces for all possible scenarios during President Duterte's second State of the Nation address. Rex Remitio shows us some scenes from the simulation that took place today.
Dozens of unruly protesters are attacking the police and throwing bottles and stones at them. They are trying to break the police formation to get near where President Duterte is speaking at the Batasan complex. In this simulation exercise, police create these scenarios they anticipate as they gear up for the President's second State of the Nation address on July 24th. Police show maximum tolerance, a policy they will implement during the SONA, no matter how violent the protesters would be. They will not use their guns or even canes. Instead, they will slowly move with their riot shields while dispersing the crowd.
Para ipakita sa kanila na talagang hindi naman ang pulis natin ang nangunguna doon sa mga violence na sinasabi, no?
Metro Manila Police Chief Oscar Albayalde says they will uphold the human rights of protesters. The police must read the Miranda rights of arrested protesters, such as the right to remain silent and right to an attorney.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Metro Manila's 5 police districts also showed their skills in formation of lines in a competition. From the double line formation when the militants are starting to get rowdy, the charging and umbrella formations to protect themselves from violent protesters, the single wedge formation to break a huge militant crowd, the arrow formation to protect VIPs, and box formation to protect themselves when worse comes to worse. So far, they have not detected any terrorist threat despite the Maute group's attack in Marawi. But still, about 6,000 police personnel will secure the President's SONA. This is more than the 4,000 last year. The police is allowing the protesters to get until the south gate of Batasan complex instead of only in front of Sandigan Bayan. Albayalde, however, is still warning protesters who will go beyond their legal limits.
Kung ayaw nilang pasaway, doon siguro magkaka-resistance ng konti.
Rex Remitio, CNN Philippines.
News overseas, 15 people are dead and hundreds are stranded following heavy rains in southwest Japan that triggered floods and landslides. Disaster officials say 14 people are still missing in the city of Fukuoka, while 47 people are unaccounted for in Oita Prefecture. Nearly 8,000 rescuers are working round the clock to search for the missing. More rains are expected as the monsoon season prevails over East Asia. U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin reached an agreement to curb violence in Syria during their meeting at the G20 summit. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said the ceasefire was a, quote, defined agreement and could be a precursor to further cooperation in Syria. Russia's foreign minister said a memorandum has been issued to establish a de-escalation zone. A ceasefire on these areas will start on July 9. British Defense Secretary Michael Fallon welcomes the agreement. He stressed a ceasefire needs to be enforced.
It's a ceasefire agreement. That may not quite be the same as a ceasefire itself, but it's to be welcomed. Any ceasefire, that civil war has gone on so long, but previous ceasefires have broken down in Aleppo, and Russia has allowed the regime to go on bombing its own civilians. So it does need to be enforced on the ground so that we can get more humanitarian aid into some of those areas where it's really badly needed. But it's welcome, but let's see it enforced.
More than 300,000 people have lost their lives in the Syrian war, which began with anti-government protests in 2011. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un marks the 23rd anniversary of the death of his grandfather, Kim Il-sung. State-controlled KCNA reports the North Korean leader visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun this morning, and that members of North Korea's armed forces responsible for the launch of the country's latest missile accompanied him. Since fully assuming power in 2012, Kim has consistently observed the death anniversary of North Korea's founder. Still ahead, another member of this year's MMFF Executive Committee resigns. This comes days after the initial list of entries to the festival was announced. And Team Philippines wins a grand champion titles at the World Championships of the Performing Arts. That's after the break. Stay tuned. Our viewers on Facebook, good evening to you guys. I only have time to read some of your messages and some of your greetings. I'd like to say hi to Nude Yaaya, watching us from Turil, Davao City. Sharon Lurd, watching from Thailand. John Daka, watching us from Botswana. Reimer Santiago Camelotes, watching from San Fernando, Palawan. Desiree Struss, watching us from Laguna. Lansgets, watching from Japan. Hello to you. Amy Devero Alcantara, watching us now from Hong Kong. Angelina S. Marceliones, watching from Qatar. Albert Subla, watching from Australia. And Efren Liagas, watching us from Jeddah. Hello to you guys. Thank you for watching us. We're live now on Facebook, and we'd love to hear from you also about the stories we're featuring today, and send us your comments and your thoughts and tell us where you're watching from. We have more stories coming up, especially that update on the Wikopa, the Grand Championships of the Performing Arts. Pinoy Pride, once again, Pinoys again bagged the championships. Stay tuned for that. Back with more stories. A call for peace through art. Local artists use their work in an effort to show how the war has affected Marawi and how Filipinos can help. Makoy Popioko has that story.
This is art therapy at its best. Dozens of Filipino artists come together to organize this art fair in Taguig City. They said this is their way to offer healing to the violence happening in Marawi City for over a month now. From beautiful watercolor paintings like this to awe-inspiring sculptures like this, name it, this exhibit is the best place to go with your family over the weekend. Among the prominent Filipino artists featured here are notable sculptor, Filipino sculptor Ronald Castrillo, and also Angono Rizal's Blanco family, best known for their paintings on flora and fauna as well as rituals of rural life in their hometown.
Hindi lang naman kailangan pumunta ka doon, tumulong ka doon. By painting about it, nagiging aware ang ating mga kababayan of what's happening. Hindi naman kailangan ipinta mo yung dugo, yung gruesome, yung violence, but something about Marawi, something fun or something, the culture of Marawi. By doing that, ni-spread mo yung awareness about Marawi.
Nung naganap ngayong nangyari sa Marawi, masyadong nakabagabag, nakakalungkot para sa akin na isa ring taga Mindanao. So, nung nabasa ko ngayon yung post nila sa Facebook, praying na sana matapos na rin yung gulo doon. And through arts, makatulong at may parating yung panawagan ng lahat na sana tapusin na yung gulo doon.
The event also features an on-the-spot art creation section called Peace for Peace, where people can ask artists to paint, sketch, draw people, sceneries, any subject that they want. Proceeds of the sale of finished works will be donated for relief and rehabilitation efforts for Marawi City. This art fair will run until Sunday here at SM Ora SMX Convention Center in Taguig City. For CNN Philippines, I am Akoy Popioko.
The San Miguel Beermen are still celebrating their Commissioner's Cup title. This time, the champs joined fans at Robinson's Galleria in Ortigas. It was hard to get around the venue because of the sheer number of supporters who turned up. But Junmar Fajardo says they don't mind as long as they can celebrate with their fans.
Mas gugustuhin namin to kaysa, di ba, hindi mag-champion. So, and, blessing to eh. So, kailangan namin i-cherish to. Then, yan yung goal namin eh. Kailangan manalo ng maraming championship as soon as possible.
The Beermen will be back in action for the PBA Governor's Cup on July 29. Another member of this year's Metro Manila Film Festival Executive Committee resigns. Former Execom member Cara Magsanok Alikpala tells CNN Philippines Ed Lejano is leaving his post. Lejano is a program director of Q Cinema, or the Quezon City International Film Festival. On Twitter, filmmaker Eric Mati calls on the media to not just report on the situation, but investigate it to, quote, find out the truth. Alikpala, along with Ricky Lee and Rolando Tolentino, have earlier resigned from the committee. On Thursday, they said they did not agree with the festival putting emphasis on, quote, commerce over art. In a statement, Lejano says the struggle of indie films in the industry still persists. A victory for Team Philippines at the World Championships of the Performing Arts, or WICOPA. Two Filipinos won the Grand Champion title. This picture shows WICOPA Hall of Famer Jed Madela with the Junior Grand Champion Nixki Calma for the dance solo category, and Senior Grand Champion Cristiani Rebada, a vocal soloist. The Philippines has over 100 delegates this year. The week-long competition was held in California with over 50 countries competing in various categories. That's what's happening in the newsroom this Saturday, July 8th.